Our group had a little bit of difficulty meeting up, so I'm going to go ahead and answer all these design discussion questions on my own, just so I had something to submit. If I've sent the link, so maybe they'll drop in, maybe they won't, but we'll see. So firstly, discuss the key concepts that had an impact on your understanding of the projects completed in this class. So some notes that I took about that is simplicity seems to matter more than what I originally thought. I have a tendency to like overthink things, and sometimes there's a little bit of conflict in regards to making it simple, but also getting the message across without it being too abstract and just honing in on simple. Um, and yeah, that simplicity matters more. So when I think about, when I was researching different icons that I could use for my brand, um, I did notice recently that when I looked up Araya, there are quite a few sound um, companies out there that are using the same name that's sound related. I suppose mine's a little bit different because it's public speaking, but and I did notice that with the logos that they were using, there were a couple that weren't going down the simple lane, but there were quite a few of them that were very simple. Luckily, nothing too similar to what I have going on, but yeah, that same idea of, sound and things like that. Another note, semiotics changed how I think, how every shape is communicating something and is not just to make the overall design look good. And that wasn't something that I was aware of previously, so that's something that I've learned and will continue to use as I design later in life and during this life. And then logos uh, need to work in black first. I had a rough idea of this initially, but it wasn't something that I was putting into practice as a designer. But now I understand better the importance of it, starting with that, and just help me focused on the shape and the form of the logo, instead of just the color and the color palette, because that's normally how I would have done things, is started off with the color palette first and then played around with different logo scenarios in that way. But yeah, having it in black first made a whole lot of sense, and I will be doing that from now on for sure. Um, what else? Oh, and then what we've been working on this week with motion, um that adding motion isn't just, so you're making a more dynamic logo. Yes, it is that, but you can also carry through the meaning and the message that you're trying to get across through motion, and not just an overall goal of just making it look cooler. Um, and that, the animations should reinforce the message that you're trying to send to your audience. And yeah, that was the basic idea that I got from it, and how I will continue to think about motion from now on. And then what was the last question? How has the material changed? So yeah, like I was saying before, I think I would strive to be more intentional with my designs moving forward, and not just designing based on what I think looks good, um, but creating things that work for the overall goal of the message that you're trying to get across. So part two, discuss challenges encountered while completing your brand projects in this course. Some notes that I wrote for this. The biggest challenge, as I was mentioning before, is balancing the simple and unique, because you try, obviously, when you're creating a logo, there's so many logos that exist out there. So you're kind of wrestling with, how do I create something different, but also still keeping it simple as well. So there were some designs that I was creating that were very literal, just to play around and see if that started a process of moving into something more unique. I struggled a little bit here and there, but I think, with the class only being a month, of course, I think with a little bit more time to work on an overall concept, um, I think I probably could have come up with a few more things that might have worked better. I am proud of and happy with what I have come up with, although it is very simplistic. I think I would have played around a little bit more with more time, but I think what I have within the time shows that I can create something um, quickly and in a pinch, which is typically how it works in the design arena anyway. That can you create something? The whole idea of there was something that I read about within the time frame, you have to forfeit or the company or the client, okay, you're only giving me this amount of time, so that means that I'm not going to be able to have the uh, huge creative bandwidth because there's not enough time to create something elaborate. So I think, yeah, being upfront with a client and saying that, well, this is the time that we have, so chances are it's going to be a little bit more simplistic. So yeah, so I think with that, um, balancing simple and unique, that was pretty tough. And yeah, like I said, avoiding list too much literal visuals of what I was trying to get across. I like the microphone, but it does come across more stage or more singer, and I wasn't trying to go in that direction at all. So yeah, trying to think a little bit more abstractly without it being when a viewer sees it that they're confused by what it is. Because obviously that's the main point. So yeah, how I handled that. Yeah, like I said, exploring different directions, and as in the lessons, like even if the idea in the back of your mind, you're like, it's not going to work, maybe it could lead into something that could work. So that's something I'm a little bit used to, but obviously anybody, it's just, the amount of time that you have to go down that rabbit hole and through that brainstorming journey. So what I learned, yeah, that refinement matters more than the first ideas. So there were ideas that I weren't in love with, but I kept, you know, if it was more polished, maybe I would like it more than the other designs. I think one of the ones that I was wrestling with was the speech bubble one. I didn't want to make it look too literal, but then obviously as an O, it looked a bit, I heard that it looked a bit, a bit more like a Q, which is understandable. So I think with more time, I probably would have merged the RIA part into the O a bit more. But yeah, I think the challenge overall, I would say, would just be the amount of time that we have to brainstorm and come up with different concepts for what we have, what we're working with. So let's see, part three. Each group member should find a brand not discussed in this course and compare it to a design concept from this month's case studies. I always kept going back to Spotify for my specific brand, just as like a audio. It's a massive brand now. Um, pretty much if they don't have Apple Music, then they're going to have Spotify. Everybody seems to know Spotify, whether you're listening to podcasts on it, whether you're audiobooks or um, and obviously its main driver music, of course. So yeah, Spotify is where I went to first, and with that whole design for Spotify, they're using one color with the green tone, and then when it's just the icon, you have those waves, which I'm just going to look it up now just so that but um the icon is unique because it doesn't appear, it's not centered, it's a little bit off, which I really liked. It gives it a little bit more character. And I think that I tried to do that a little bit with the logo that I have with the bars because they're not all the same level, the same height. So I tried to give it just that little bit more character of it not being synchronized, even though our eyes are trained to look at things that are very symmetrical. But yeah, because Spotify doesn't really do that, I was like, well, maybe I don't have to do that just, to get my message across and things. So, um, but yeah, it's some of the notes that I had with also the motion for Spotify. If you ever see the logo where it's in motion, it also reinforces the sound and the music identity of the brand. So it made me think about how I was going to achieve the motion for my own logo, and I think I have something pretty solid now. And then yeah, so similar to oh, and then also regarding like the non-centeredness of Spotify, it shows how abstract can be stronger than literal. So yeah. And then part four, as a design team using the concepts for the class, provide peer critique to one another by reviewing each member's developing logo designs of the week for. So if I remember rightly, I believe Ronaldo was working on the Badger. It was like a Badger toy company or something like that. So let me see if I can bring up his project real quick. And then what was the other part? Yeah, so for mine in particular, like I was saying previously, it's based on communication and speech. So that's where the speech bubble came in, and then the communication, anything audio related. That's where I was using the bars as a twofold message of this is a brand that is going to be scaling your achievement and scaling your growth and things like that. But I was also using it as like audio levels as well. So that's how that played into my own logo. And also, I wanted my logo to be simple and scalable, which I find that both of the ones that I turned in last week suit those requirements. And it's not overly literal. I got rid of the microphone just because I thought it was overly literal. And I think that I created a logo that was going to be very flexible for motion since the shapes are so simple. But yeah, now that I have the page for everybody else's, so let's see. So yeah, so I think Ronaldo did the same similar things with his Badger logo, keeping very simple shapes, very unique way of portraying the badger in the bottom half of what he had turned in last week. And then using, a serif type for his wording on his logo as well. So yeah, I think it works for what he's trying to get across. I wouldn't necessarily say it screams wood. I would say the top one, when you think about wood and the streaks in wood or the grain rather, I think that looks more like a badger's fur. So I think that could have been played with a bit more, perhaps. But again, it does get the message across, and color, the color versions as well. I think those look really good, effective. And then let me see if I can find Alexius on here. Okay. So they had the D-Hat tour, Delocator, Dejour, DJ. Um, so let me see. Let me go back to the design discussion. So focus how effectively the logo communicates here. I think just by looking at Alexis, I'm not 100% sure what it is. I think because it says tour, it might be the concert. Um, and let's see what else does it. Let's see. I am not sure how effective Alexia's is because I'm not because the first one also has electric like thunder, what do you call that? Yeah, like like thunderstorm streaks. And so I'm not sure if it's weather, I'm not sure if it's an electrical company, but then the bottom one has a lot going on. I think it looks like there's about six different types going on, and I don't know if that's necessarily seen in logo, so it definitely makes it different. But I do think the choice of type isn't making it legible because this J could be a T, it could be an L. I think it's trying to be a T and an L. Um, but yeah, I think that more simpler shapes and more of a simpler design probably would have worked a lot better with that. Um, and with that, yeah, I will wrap it up there since nobody came in, and I think that I've touched on all the points here. But yeah, thank you for watching.